I am certain one of the best ways to get a terrible answer to a question is to ask a bad question. I was in a Facebook group today and somebody said, hey, I just started a podcast. Any advice? It's like, yes, ask a better question. Because you're probably not going to get really good advice if nobody knows what you're looking for.
So curiosity, I call it humble curiosity, leads to questions. Thinking is nothing more or less than constantly asking and answering questions. And that's why I love Google and ChatGPT and all these things, that you get all these awesome answers that you can then go and implement. So your life gets better as long as you're asking better and better questions.
Next Level Nation. Today, for episode number 2010, bad questions get worse answers. As you heard in the intro there, we're talking about some bad questions that maybe we have asked and maybe bad answers we have gotten from them. It's interesting that you mentioned ChatGPT and that stuff, because I was thinking to myself, isn't it weird? One of my favorite ways to start a sentence. Isn't it weird that now one of the things that people get like credibility and credit and clout, as the kids say, for is how well you talk to a robot? The questions you ask a robot, like you know the prompts to ask in order to get certain answers. Isn't that really weird? You probably expected that. Mm-hmm. But it's really weird when I'll see people that say like, yeah, I'm a ChatGPT expert. It's like, okay, you're really good at talking to a robot. You know the right questions to ask. And that's a really weird thing that I never thought was going to be valuable. It's super valuable now.
Yeah, I think that's probably...
It's probably a me thing.
I don't think it's a you thing. I think it's probably something that I've been asking questions my entire life, so I feel like that's probably a skill. I was with Emilia's dad, just got back from Japan yesterday. We went and saw her family yesterday. And the first question I asked him is the question I love to ask, which is, what's one thing that I would never know unless I visited? I'm always trying to ask those things because I'm looking for, okay, well, I didn't go have that experience, but what can I learn from his experience? Because he just spent, however many hours in a plane, however much money on hotels, but he's been there. So what can I gain from this conversation? That's one thing that my very first podcast, YouTube channel, as Kevin insists, he was the first guest, was Conversations Change Lives. The reason why Conversations Change Lives, if I were to elaborate on that title, is because conversations don't change lives unless there's great questions that are asked from intelligent people that have powerful answers.
It's a long-ass name, though, for a podcast.
Yeah, well, that's exactly
/ YouTube. Sorry, / YouTube channel.
No, it's okay. It was a podcast. It was a podcast. It was going to be a podcast.
When you're working with someone and they ask you a question, this is a good example, and I don't think Emilia would mind me saying this. There are times where Emilia will ask me a question, and I'll say, ask me the same thing, but make it 10 times simpler. Same question.
All the time. Yeah.
Make it simpler, because the answer is going to be all over the place, and if I don't know what you're talking about, how do you ensure when somebody is asking you a question, it's a valuable question?
Dude, I don't know. That's a great dialogue we're having, but I think that I've been doing this for so long that I don't even know if I know how I'm doing what I'm doing. There are certain...
Reframe. Sorry, I knew you were getting ready, but again,
I had one in the holster.
It was on its way out, but I know. What advice? Yeah, this is gonna be a harder question, honestly. But what advice would you give to somebody who wants to ask better questions?
You have to get more curious. I think you have to go to the curiosity. I don't think... So you and I, for 8 years, you've been asking me questions. More behind the scenes than in front, but both.
I don't want people to know. That's why I do it behind the scenes. I know
wink,
it all.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
So you know, I know it all.
Yeah, I know it all.
I don't even have to ask questions about anything to anybody.
And I think over time, your brain has picked up on... I was talking to Emilia this weekend. The brain, we don't talk about it enough, but what makes Kevin is Kevin's brain. I mean, I could lop off an arm. You're still Kev. Right? I can't lop off a piece of your brain and have you still be Kev. And I don't think we realize that. It's the brain. I mean, that is it, right? So, obviously body matters too, but the brain is the most important. There's a lot you can do to the body and still be alive and still be conscious and still be you. There's very little you can do to the brain where you're still you, which is why when I got a concussion snowboarding, I never not wore a helmet again. Holy crap. But anyways, so what was my point of all that? Oh, your brain has just been picking up on things that I've been saying for the last 8 years. And the books, I mean, all the books that I've suggested you read, it's not for any one tactic. It's for you to understand something you never understood before so that you can go, oh, and then you can make better choices. So ask a better question, get a better answer, get a better answer, get a better understanding, get a better understanding. Now you can make better choices. Because when you're a kid, and this is a good example, like a 7-year-olds don't really know anything. So they can't make good choices. So if a 7-year-old does something really dumb or dangerous, we blame the parents. And the reason why is because the parents are far more aware.
Hopefully.
And it's, yeah, exactly. That's a fair assessment. But a lot of people aren't curious because they're not humble. I think humility is the most underrated character trait in the world. Self-belief is sexy. Humility isn't. Not that sexy. Never understood, dude. I didn't get, first of all, I never thought I was humble because everyone thought I was arrogant. But I think when it comes to curiosity and humility, I feel like I've always been very curious. I've been asking questions from smart people my whole life. I used to, at college, I would find the smartest people I could find and then ask them questions and get them to debate each other so that I could just learn. Seriously. Like regularly.
I believe it. I think the hard part is it's hard to ask a question. It's hard to desire an answer that you don't know exists. There has to be one domino. So I've been watching a lot of, remember I used to talk about this dude named Matt Armstrong? He has a YouTube channel where he fixes up cars. And he was working at a restaurant. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm going to do this YouTube thing. And now he's just crushing it.
Nice.
Last night I was watching a video where they bought a Rolls-Royce SUV. So this is like a $500,000 or $600,000 vehicle that was in a flood. Because that's what they do. They buy these things and they're like, all right, we're going to find a way to fix it. And the reason I can't do that is because I don't have the right series of questions and answers of, okay, when I try to turn the car on, it makes this noise or I get this code, that goes to this, and the fix for this is this, and this is where I can find it. So I think that's why it's really hard to ask valuable questions, because you kind of have to have the string to pull. And maybe that is just a curiosity thing.
You gave a speech on questions to a group of podcasters and YouTubers.
Yeah.
What was your main takeaway?
The better you know the answer, the better the questions you can ask are. I know so much about you. If I wanted to do like a world-class, and again, this is going to sound arrogant, I don't mean it this way. If I wanted to do a world-class interview, I know there's very little that you're going to say that I haven't heard you say already. It's up to me to take the answers and then form the questions. But that's how I've always done. The way I used to do interviews, I did not want to learn anything new about the guest. That wasn't my job. At least that's not what I thought my job was. My job was to get the guest to say the thing that I knew would be super impactful, that would make the biggest change for the listener. And you always were doing the curiosity thing, which worked
in
really
hindsight.
nicely.
Yeah, well, I learned a lot, but I think in hindsight, your way was better for the listener, because I thought that if I scratch my own itch of curiosity, everyone would benefit. And I think they will, but it's all contextual. So if you're a business owner, for example, you'll benefit more than if you're not. And I remember one time, Kev, you and I were in the studio. I'll never forget. There's certain things I'll never forget. And you said, how do you know all this? And it was obviously a moment when I had kind of gone beyond what you thought I knew. And I remember saying I had to know all this. That was my answer. And let me unpack that. My goals required me to know all this. Like, you know how to use Google Sheets now pretty well. Yeah. Now, you're not a 10 out of 10, but you're probably 7 out of 10. You don't just wake up one day and go, I think I'm going to go learn Google Sheets. Human beings only learn to get their goals, for the most part. People don't learn to learn usually. That's actually a huge problem, because you don't know what you don't know. So, for example, the Conscious Couples podcast, I've learned so much about relationships, intimate relationships, over the last 4 years because I had to. I've set my life up in a way where I'm constantly learning by necessity. And I think that the questions that you should be asking yourselves, and these suck. Like, I need to make this as clear as possible, and I need to stop saying like. Why do I say so many filler words? Boom, boom, boom. That's a good question. But one of the reasons why I think this podcast is so hard for me is because the questions you have to ask yourself to actually improve are not good. They suck. So let me give you some of the ones that I ask myself all the time. Where am I inadequate right now? Where am I being arrogant? Where might I be fucking up? Where might we be losing momentum? What's the best use of my time right now? What's my biggest bottleneck right now? What's my biggest limiting belief right now? None of these are good. These all make you feel terrible. You need to be very careful about only asking questions that make you feel good about yourself. You also have to be careful about only asking questions that make you feel bad about yourself. Because I was telling Kev earlier, I said I woke up today, Monday, and I'm not feeling super great about myself. But the reason why is because our goals are so big that we're winning compared to every, most statistical norms, but we're always losing up against our own potential, up against our own goals. Like, if you're shooting to build a $500,000 per year business, you're going to feel like a loser at 450. It doesn't mean you're a loser. It just means you feel like you're losing at your own game. And so you and I have talked a lot about and so one of the reasons why this podcast is so hard for people, so anyone out there watching or listening, kudos to you, because this podcast doesn't really make you feel very good about yourself. It's not designed for that. We're not here to feel good about ourselves. We're not here to feel bad about ourselves. We're here to improve ourselves. And in order to improve yourself, you basically have to ask questions that help you see your weaknesses and inadequacies so that you can go either be aware of them or work on them or both. And so the questions that I think are the most powerful are things like, what's a limiting belief that I have that has disguised itself as empowering? So I'll give you an answer. The answer is me being optimistic is actually a bottleneck because I'm naive. And when you hear me say that, a lot of people don't say that. They're like, oh, no, I'm very confident and I'm accurate and all this stuff. They act like they've arrived. I don't like doing that. To me, I am naive, extremely naive. I'm not more naive than anyone else, but I'm way more naive than I have to be to succeed. And so the higher you aim in life toward your own unique version of success, like if you're climbing Mount Everest and you're even a little bit naive, you're going to die. If you're climbing Mount Wachusett, you can be naive like I was and just climb it and run out of water and you're still fine.
Mount Wachusett is a little mountain around where we grew up.
Yeah.
For the vast 99.9% of you probably don't know.
How do you get people to ask questions that are powerful but not making them feel bad about themselves? Because honestly, most of the questions that are useful actually make you feel like your life is failing, not succeeding.
I don't know if I have a good answer for that. Understanding that there's so much value under the answer, even if it doesn't feel good at first. I mean, what if the reason you are not getting what you want out of life yet is because it's two things. It's one, you don't know how to. Two, you haven't asked the right questions to uncover what you don't know. And again, obviously you have to go to work and do it. It's not that simple, but I don't know. Let's talk about what questions you're ready to ask and get answers to, maybe. Do you feel like you're ready to... On a scale of 0 to 10, how consistent are you? I don't know, probably like a 5. Okay, cool. What would a 6 look like? Well, I'd be doing this and this. Okay. To the best of your knowledge, to the best of your ability, to the best of your awareness, why aren't you doing it?
Nice.
That right there might be, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like I'm lazy. Okay. Well, what is that? What does lazy mean to you? There, you're off to the races. Now, maybe you never get to the place where you say, if you walked out in front of your house tomorrow and got hit by a massive bus and died, would you regret being lazy? Shithead? Probably not the place to go. You might never, ever want to hear that from someone. There's other people out there that want to hear that right now, but it doesn't mean you should. I don't want to hear that. I'd be like, first of all, be nice. You have to drop the shithead there at the end. You could have just asked me the question. I did that for, dramatic effect.
Of course, of course.
Next Level Nation. We are very, very excited to announce that we are doing our first purely virtual Next Level Live on April 5th, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alan and myself will be live streaming from Worcester, Massachusetts.
Next Level Live 2025. Be there. It's only $47 for a full day of personal development, self-improvement, holistic health, wealth, life, and love.
We have a global audience. Obviously, if you live somewhere else in the world, it's hard to come across the country or across the world for a one-day event, so we wanted to make sure it was accessible to everyone.
You're not going to get to the next level of your life by default. You're going to get there by design. Join us. Design that next level. The thing that I've never been able to, I don't even know if I understand this yet, but I certainly can't articulate it. Okay, how do you know the right question to ask? Dude, where do you even start on that one? That's a question. Okay, what's the answer? Well, there's an optimal question to ask for the right context of a person. And this is why I always go back to goals. I can't not talk about goals in the context of this conversation, because if you don't have any goals, there is no right or wrong question. If you're a horseback rider, you have to ask very different questions than if you're a podcaster.
Yeah.
Than if you're a basketball player, than if you're a computer engineer. So,
do you think there's a right answer? Do you think there's a right answer to any question? That's dumb because yes, but
there's an optimal one based on the person, the context, and the goal.
Is it?
That's like asking if there's a right turn for a self-driving car. Yes, there is, but it depends on where you're going and what the car is.
But after the car takes the turn, it now knows that it could have taken the turn better, and it will do so next time. Right?
That's machine learning, right there. That's also not just machine learning, but human learning is the same exact concept. Machine learning and human learning are the same thing. Machine learning was invented based on human learning.
I would much rather somebody ask a dumb question, because a dumb question.
Yeah.
Now again, that kind of eliminates what we talked about here at the beginning. But I think it's fair to say bad questions get bad answers. But no questions get no answers.
Fire.
And at least, and I'm going to contradict myself in this very episode. At least if you ask a dumb question, hopefully the answer you get is somewhat constructive and not somebody saying what I said at the top, like ask better questions. I don't really mean that.
But that is a good answer. It's only the ego that makes that a bad answer.
Fair.
Dude, a dumb question gets an answer, which leads to a less dumb question.
Fair.
Or a more smart one, depending how you want to frame it. The reason words are so hard for me is because you can frame them in the positive or the negative. So if I ask a question to Kevin, what's the biggest bottleneck in your life right now? Okay, that's a question. He gives me an answer, which leads to another question. He gives me an answer, which leads to another question. What's going to happen in that process is we're going to identify the bottleneck, and then we're going to ask questions to brainstorm a solution. The reason I love human beings and the human brain and neuroscience and all this stuff is because our brain is capable of solutions. This is going to be a silly reference, but I'll go quick with it. Jungle Book, there's two, actually. One's called Mowgli, one's called Jungle Book. The real live action series one. The animals are like blown away by Mowgli's ability to tie a rope and climb the tree and get the honey. Baloo is like a big bear who loves honey, and he basically hoodwinks Mowgli to get all the honey from the bees. But animals can't do contemplative thinking and long-term strategic thinking. So he creates tools that the animals cannot create. And that's what makes us uniquely human. We can build buildings, we can build phones, we can build fucking StreamYard, we can build the camera. I think about this all the time. I watched a video recently, I don't know if I sent it to you, the first invention of toilet paper.
No.
Did I not? Yeah. So toilet paper was invented in the early 1800s, and apparently, I don't know what they did before. But invention all comes through brainstorming. We the unsung heroes of NLU, of every company, is brainstorming. So the iPhone was always possible. We just didn't know how to do it. The camera was always possible. We just didn't know how to do it. The StreamYard was always possible. We just didn't know how to do it. Or there wasn't a big enough need, perceived need. So all of a sudden, when COVID happened, there was a big perceived need for these weights that I wanted that were interchangeable. They were going for like $800 when they were.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why is because the need increased. So there's always solutions, but life is nothing more or less, unfortunately. This is going to be depressing, but it really is identifying problems, identifying the root cause of those problems, and then identifying solutions. And then once you have a solution, and you know this more than anyone, Kevin, in business, there's another bunch of problems that come up.
Just got it recently.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was saying that to Taryn. We're working with a very big new client, and there's a lot of money at stake, which is awesome. And then it was like, oh, okay, you're ready to switch now? Okay, cool. And then there's a list of 15 things that have to get done that I don't know how to do yet. So I got to find, and that's when you get a new layer of questions. Hey, that's when you get a new layer of questions. I think the more you level up your self-awareness, you know what questions to ask about yourself, or ask to yourself, or ask for yourself, whatever. And then whatever your thing is, if your thing is construction, you know better questions to ask. If you're a contractor and you're going to go buy a house, you have better questions than I do. If you're a doctor or a nurse or somebody who works in the medical field, you have better questions to ask when you drop your kids off at daycare about their safety protocols than I would ever have. You have better questions because you already have more answers than I do. And there's just something to that. So I just want to touch on it real quick because I did contradict myself. I would much rather somebody ask a stupid question than no question, myself included. I've asked a lot of dumb questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully the person that gives you the answer is also trying to give you an answer and not just an ego type deal. Because that's kind of what the opening was. It was like, in my mind, there was a piece of me that thought, ask a better question. Because the people in the group are not going to know how to answer you. I think a piece of that for me is because this is a podcaster who's going to be screwed if they don't get the answers to the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if any ego came out, I think that's why. But I'd rather you ask a bad question, a misaligned question, a question that produces very little answer than no question at all, because you don't get any input that way. And input is good, even if it's not ideal.
I am able to brag about you because you won't. And I think that's really important because I don't think a lot of people are allowed to share things that they're doing really well for whatever reason in the social world that's just not accepted. So yesterday at the dinner table with Emilia's family, I said, well, I'm going to brag about her because I know she won't. And they learned a lot about her that they wouldn't have known. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I want to share about you that I know you wouldn't necessarily share because you don't want to come off like an arrogant, pretentious prick.
It's fair.
I'm kidding. But you have been brainstorming regularly for 8 years. I mean, you brainstorm all the time, and that's a good question for everybody out there. How often and how much do you brainstorm? And with the right people. Because brainstorming is the unsung hero of all progress. But it's not fun. I mean, I like it. Obviously, you do too.
I do now. I didn't always.
But a lot of times it's uncomfortable. That's what book club is, right? I mean, it's just constantly brainstorming. Let's read this book. Do we agree? Let's share our past, present, future. What's going on? I don't know if it's fun or not. I don't really care. I think what matters is that when you become more aware, there's three things. There's resources, there's skills, and there's awareness. And brainstorming can bring ways to get more resources, more skills, and more awareness. And it's this compound effect. Every episode is Kevin and I brainstorming so that everyone can leave with something. You will leave this episode smarter. You just will. That's what this podcast, that's what the point of this podcast is. And so you've been brainstorming from the moment I met you. Well, from the moment we reconnected. We knew each other in middle school and high school, but from the moment you and I reconnected 8 years ago, I mean, we've been brainstorming. 5 times a week minimum for 8 years. And the version of Kevin and Alan 8 years ago, if we got to talk to them, we would be alarmed at how dumb they are.
I don't think I would.
I would, for sure.
I don't think I
but
would.
They just let me use a different label. How unaware they were.
I know how unaware I was, brother. I wouldn't
Well,
be
you
a
had higher
surprise to
awareness
me.
of your unawareness than I do.
Of course.
But you wouldn't be like, dude, I think you'd be, oh, whoa.
I think about it all the time, man.
You do? 8 years ago? Dude, again, we weren't.
I think about it all the time.
I don't want to say we were ignorant because we were doing the best we could. I don't think we were dumb. That's not my point. We were much less aware. We were exponentially less aware than we are now about people, about the world, about life, about everything. And I think
I'm sure
that's...
there would be some stuff that would surprise me. I mean, it would be dumb of me to say that it wouldn't. But I do think I had a pretty good grasp on how unaware I was. I knew awareness was the prescription I needed.
Yeah,
so
okay,
I
fair.
made a podcast about becoming the most aware I could possibly be, and then went all in on it. It's like this.
Nice.
This could be something. Let me give this a shot here.
So far, so good.
This is my kryptonite, lack of awareness. All right, what is your next level lesson for the audience?
The questions that you are asking yourself are dictating a lot of your future. A lot. That's why journaling is so powerful. That's why getting the right mentor or coach is so powerful. And brainstorming is the unsung hero, even if it's alone. Do you know how much time I spend alone just like, what the fuck is next? Like, what am I missing? All the time, brother. I mean, I'm always... How do I...
Messages at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'm sure that's where they come from.
Exactly. And so thinking and brainstorming, it's the part of the work no one sees. But it's the most important. Yeah, it's the most important.
Mine would be the second question is most likely going to be way more impactful than the first. The third will most likely be way more impactful than the second, and you just rinse and repeat that forever. So if you said to someone, I mean, it probably won't be a good example. Why aren't you guys open on Saturday? You go to a restaurant. Hey, just FYI, we're closed tomorrow. Why are you closed tomorrow? Saturday, biggest day of the week for you, probably. Well, and then they go into a story. Well, when I was growing up, my family, we always spent Saturdays together. That's like super important for me. Okay, why? Like, do you care more about family than you do business? Yeah, I care more about family. Okay. How? How is that possible? Like, aren't you super afraid you can't pay your bills? No, I feel like the family thing just always kind of worked. People know we're a family establishment. More people come in on Friday nights because they know we're closed Saturday. And then you just, boom, you're down the rabbit hole. How does that affect who you hire? Does that affect who you fire? Does that affect how much you pay people? Is that why you guys have such good reviews? Because you're so focused on family and building relate. Boom, 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 boom. But that all started with, why aren't you guys open on Saturday? I need a pizza pie on Saturday. You guys aren't here to do it. WTF, mate. What's this about? Boom.
Nice.
Boom. All right. Cool. Next Level Nation. It's on April 5th, 2025. Next Level Live 2025. Again, everybody says this. Few people mean it. Tickets are going faster than expected. #grateful for all of you who are purchasing your tickets in advance. Please make sure you do not wait, because if you wait to the last minute, tickets will be sold out. Once we sell 50, we're not selling anymore, and then you're going to have to wait till next year, and then tickets are going to be $500,000 per. So, whatever. If that's the way you want to do it, you can do it, but we want everybody to be in the room with us virtually, and if you want to be there, this is the year.
April 5th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The biggest concern that I'm hearing is that do you have to be there for the entire thing? So it's kind of a speech, a training, and a workshop sort of all into one. You do not have to be there for the entire thing. You can pop in and out as needed, and you will get access to the entire replay. So if you miss anything, you will be able to go back.
Boom. And tickets are only $47. Netflix is going to be $47 a month in no time, so you get a full day's event.
Especially with all the movies they're producing.
Right,
Holy
for what
shit.
Netflix is going to be in a couple of months. All right, cool. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Stay next level. Next Level Nation.